The
What a
hostess at
view
Lumiere,
to the city.
one
To the
of
city
the
and
city's
great
most
company.
Cheers to
exclusive
that.
restaurants, looked at Julian. Hartwell with what could only be described as apologetic condescension. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Hartwell, but we're completely booked for the evening. Even for you, I'm afraid I can't conjure a table out of thin air. Julian stood in the warm glow of the restaurant's entrance, feeling foolish in his tailored charcoal suit and crisp white shirt. At 42, he was used to doors opening for him, literal and metaphorical. He was the CEO of Hartwell Industries, a tech company worth over $300 million. He'd been featured on magazine covers, invited to speak at conferences, courted by investors and politicians. People returned his calls immediately. Restaurants held tables for him, except apparently not tonight. I made a reservation 3 weeks ago, Julian said, trying to keep frustration out of his voice. Julian Hartwell, party of one, 8 o'clock. The hostess, a young woman with sleek dark hair, and the kind of professional smile that revealed nothing, checked her computer again. I see the reservation, sir, and I apologize profusely, but it appears there was a computer glitch, and your reservation was accidentally canceled. We didn't catch it until now. I'm so sorry. If you'd like to wait at the bar, I can see if anything opens up. But on a Saturday evening? She trailed off meaningfully. Julian glanced at the bar, which was packed 3 deep with well-dressed patrons holding cocktails and conversations. The thought of squeezing in there alone on his birthday felt like a special kind of pathetic. Never mind, he said, forcing a polite smile. Thank you anyway. He turned to leave, his mood sinking lower than it had been all day, which was saying something, considering how the day had started. His assistant had sent him a generic happy birthday text. His brother had called from London, but had clearly been distracted, ending the conversation after 3 minutes. His ex-wife had sent nothing, which wasn't surprising since they hadn't spoken in the 2 years, since the divorce. At 42 years old on his birthday, Julian Hartwell, successful, wealthy, supposedly enviable, had nowhere to go and no one to see. He was halfway to the exit when he heard a voice call out. Excuse me, sir? Julian turned to see a woman waving at him from a table near the window. She had dark hair pulled back in an elegant bun, warm brown eyes, and a smile that seemed genuinely friendly rather than polite. She wore a cream-colored blouse tucked into jeans, casual, by the restaurant's standards, but she wore it with confidence. Beside her sat a boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old, with brown hair and his mother's eyes, wearing a red and white striped shirt. Are you looking for a table? The woman asked as Julian approached, confused. Yes. My reservation was apparently canceled by mistake. That's terrible, the woman said, and she sounded like she meant it. Look, my son and I have this whole table to ourselves. It seats 4, and honestly, it feels a bit wasteful. Would you like to join us? I know it's unusual to invite a stranger to dinner, but you look... She paused, searching for words. You look like you could use some company. Julian was so surprised he almost said no out of reflex. But something about the genuine kindness in her expression, the lack of recognition in her eyes, she had no idea who he was, made him reconsider. Are you sure? I wouldn't want to intrude on your evening. You're not intruding if we're inviting you, the boy piped up. Mom always says there's no such thing as too much kindness. Right, Mom? The woman laughed, a warm sound that seemed to ease some of the tension Julian had been carrying. Right, Miguel. We'd really like you to join us. I'm Sofia Martinez, and this is my son Miguel. Julian, he said, shaking her hand and then Miguel's, who shook with exaggerated seriousness. Julian Hartwell. And thank you. This is incredibly kind. He sat down across from them, and the hostess appeared almost immediately, looking relieved that the situation had resolved itself. She handed Julian a menu and refilled their water glasses before disappearing. So, Sophia said, her eyes twinkling with curiosity, do you always try to dine alone at fancy restaurants on Saturday evenings? Or is this a special occasion? It's my birthday, Julian admitted, and then felt immediately embarrassed by how pathetic that sounded. Your birthday! Miguel exclaimed. And you're eating alone? Don't you have any friends? Miguel, Sophia admonished gently, but she was smiling. That's a bit direct. It's a fair question, Julian said, surprising himself with his honesty. And the answer is, not really. Not close ones anyway. I have business associates, colleagues, people I work with. But friends, people I'd call to have dinner with on my birthday? He shook his head. I've been working so hard for so long that I guess I forgot to maintain those relationships. That's sad, Miguel said with the brutal honesty of childhood. But it's okay. You can have birthday dinner with us. Right, Mom? Absolutely, Sophia said warmly. Everyone deserves company on their birthday. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking? 42 today. Happy birthday, Julian, Sophia said. And Miguel echoed her, adding a slightly off-key rendition of the birthday song that made several nearby diners smile. Over dinner, Julian ordered the duck. Sophia chose the salmon, and Miguel went with chicken. Fingers from the children's menu, Julian learned their story. Sophia was a social worker, 33 years old, divorced for 2 years. Miguel's father had left when the boy was 4, moved across the country, and rarely called. Sophia worked long hours helping families in crisis, often bringing work home because she cared too much to leave it at the office. Tonight is special, Sophia explained, watching Miguel demolish his chicken fingers with the focused intensity only children possess. Miguel got an award at school for being the most helpful student in his class. He's always the first to volunteer, always looking out for classmates who need a friend. I wanted to celebrate that. And he specifically asked to come here because he saw a picture of it in a magazine and thought it looked fancy. It is fancy, Miguel confirmed through a mouthful of chicken. There are like 3 forks. Who needs 3 forks? Rich people, Sophia said with a teasing smile. Or people pretending to be rich. Which category do I fall into? Julian asked, amused. Sophia studied him for a moment. Actually rich, I'd guess. Your suit is custom-tailored. Your watch is a Patek Philippe? I had a client once whose ex-husband was obsessed with expensive watches. So I recognize it, and you carry yourself like someone used to being in charge. Plus, you were trying to get a table here on a Saturday night with no reservation backup plan, which suggests money is not usually a barrier for you. Julian found himself laughing. You're observant. Occupational hazard. So what do you do, Julian? What keeps you so busy that you don't have time for friends? I run a tech company. Software development, mostly for enterprise clients. We started small about 15 years ago, and it's grown into something much larger than I ever anticipated. That's impressive, Sophia said. But also exhausting, I'd imagine. Do you enjoy it? The question caught Julian off guard. Nobody ever asked if he enjoyed his work. They asked about profits, growth projections, expansion plans. But enjoyment? I used to, he admitted. In the early days, when it was just me and a few programmers working out of a garage, I loved it. Every problem we solved felt meaningful. Every client we landed was a victory. But now, he paused, surprised by his own candor. Now it feels like I'm just maintaining a machine. I spend my days in meetings, reviewing reports, making decisions about things I don't even directly work on anymore. I'm successful by every metric that's supposed to matter. But I'm not sure I remember what it feels like to actually enjoy what I'm doing. That's really sad, Miguel said, looking up from his chicken. My mom says if you don't like your job, you should find a new one. Miguel's right, Sophia said. Though I recognize it's more complicated when you're running a company. But life's too short to spend it doing things that make you miserable. Trust me, I see people every day who've spent years making choices that seemed practical or responsible, but that left them empty. Money and success are nice, but they're not substitutes for happiness. Speaking from experience, Julian asked gently. Sophia nodded. My ex-husband is a lawyer, very successful, makes a lot of money. He wanted me to quit my job because he thought social work was beneath us. Wanted me to be a stay-at-home mom and focus on hosting dinner, parties for his colleagues. When I refused, when I insisted on keeping my job and my identity, he started looking elsewhere for someone who'd play the role he wanted. The divorce was messy, but ultimately it was the right choice. I'm happier now, even if money is tighter. Mom works really hard, Miguel added loyally. She helps people who need help. She's basically a superhero. I'm not a superhero, Sophia said, but she was smiling. I'm just someone who tries to make a small difference where I can. That's more than most people do, Julian said quietly. The conversation flowed easily throughout dinner. Sophia told stories about her work, heartbreaking and inspiring in equal measure. Miguel shared elaborate tales from school, complete with dramatic reenactments that made Julian laugh more than he had in months, and Julian, to his surprise, found himself opening up about his life in ways he rarely did with anyone. He told them about his marriage, how he and Vanessa had grown apart, how they'd stayed together out of habit long after love had faded, how the divorce had been inevitable but still painful. He talked about the loneliness of success, how the higher he climbed, the more isolated he felt, how he'd wake up sometimes in his penthouse apartment and feel like he was living in a hotel, not a home. "You need people," Sophia said simply. "Real connections. You can't build a meaningful life alone." "I'm learning that," Julian admitted. After dinner, when the check came, Julian reached for it immediately, but Sophia shook her head. This was supposed to be a celebration for Miguel. "I'm paying." "Sophia, I appreciate that, but please, let me." "You invited me to join you when I had nowhere else to go. You gave me the best birthday I've had in years. Let me do this." Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but only because it's your birthday. And because Miguel and I are getting dessert, which is going to be expensive." Miguel's eyes lit up. "Ice cream?" "The fanciest ice cream they have," Sophia confirmed. They ordered dessert, a chocolate souffle to share, and Miguel's ice cream sundae, and lingered over coffee. Juice for Miguel for another hour. Julian couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this comfortable, this genuinely happy in someone else's company. Finally, reluctantly, Sophia checked her watch. "I hate to end this, but it's almost 10 and Miguel has soccer in the morning. We should get going." They walked out together, and Julian waited with them for the valet to bring Sophia's car, an older sedan that had clearly seen better days but was immaculately maintained. "Thank you," Julian said as Sophia opened the back door for Miguel. "Truly, you have no idea how much this evening meant to me." "I'm glad we could help," Sophia said. "And Julian, I hope you figure out what makes you happy. You seem like a good person. You deserve to enjoy your life, not just succeed at it." "Can Julian come to my soccer game tomorrow?" Miguel asked suddenly from the back seat. "Since it's his birthday weekend, he should do fun stuff." "Miguel, I'm sure Julian has plans." "I don't, actually," Julian interrupted. "And I'd love to come, if that's not too weird." Sophia smiled. "It's not weird. It's sweet. Games at 10 a.m. at Riverside Park? You'll be able to spot us. We're the ones cheering way too loudly for a bunch of 7-year-olds kicking a ball around." They exchanged phone numbers, and Julian watched them drive away, feeling something shift inside him. For the first time in years, he'd connected with people who saw him as just Julian. Not as the CEO, not as the wealthy businessman, not as someone who could be useful to them, just as a person. The next morning, Julian showed up at Riverside Park in jeans and a casual button-down, the most informal he'd dressed in public in years. He found Sophia and Miguel easily, both wearing matching team jerseys, Sophia with a thermos of coffee and Miguel bouncing with pre-game energy. "You came!" Miguel shouted, running over to hug Julian's legs. "I said I would," Julian replied, surprised by how much the boy's enthusiasm warmed him. He sat with Sophia on the sidelines, cheering for Miguel's team, the Riverside Rangers, and learning more about her life. She told him about growing up in a working-class neighborhood, putting herself through college and grad school, the satisfaction of helping families find resources and stability. She told him about the challenges, the bureaucracy, the heartbreaking cases she couldn't fix, the way the system failed the people who needed it most. "Why do you keep doing it?" Julian asked. "If it's so frustrating?" "Because every once in a while, I get to see a family turn things around," Sophia said. "I get to see a kid succeed against all odds. I get to be the person who helps someone in their darkest moment. That's worth all the frustration, making a real difference in even one life that matters more than any paycheck ever could." Julian thought about his own work, about the software his company developed, about how removed he'd become from any sense of purpose or impact. When was the last time he'd felt like his work mattered beyond quarterly profits? After the game, which the Rangers lost but everyone had fun anyway, Miguel begged Julian to come get ice cream with them. Then ice cream turned into lunch. Lunch turned into a walk in the park. and by the time the sun was setting, Julian had spent almost the entire day with Sophia and Miguel. "I don't want to monopolize your whole weekend," Julian said as they walked back to Sophia's car. "You're not," Sophia assured him. "We're enjoying your company. It's nice to have an adult to talk to who isn't another parent discussing carpool schedules." "Can Julian come over for dinner this week?" Miguel asked. "Miguel, Julian's probably very busy." "I'm not," Julian said. "I mean, I am, but I can make time." "I'd like to, if you'll have me." Sophia smiled. "Then yes, come to dinner." "Wednesday? I'll cook. It won't be fancy like the restaurant, but I promise it'll be good." Wednesday dinner became Friday movie night. Friday movie night became Sunday brunch. Before Julian quite realized it, Sophia and Miguel had become a fixture in his life, the people he called when something good happened, the people he wanted to share his free time with, the people who felt like family. His assistant noticed the change. "You've been leaving the office at reasonable hours," she commented one day. "And you actually took last Saturday completely off. Are you feeling all right?" "I'm feeling better than I have in years," Julian told her honestly. His business partners noticed too. "You seem different," his COO said during a strategy meeting. "Happier, less stressed." "What's changed?" "I remembered there's more to life than work," Julian said simply. 3 months after that birthday dinner, Julian sat in Sophia's modest apartment, so different from his sleek penthouse, helping Miguel with homework while Sophia made dinner. It felt more like home than anywhere he'd lived in decades. "Julian," Miguel said, looking up from his math worksheet, "are you going to be my mom's boyfriend?" "Miguel," Sophia called from the kitchen. "That's personal." "But I want to know," Miguel said, "because I think it would be cool. You're nice, and you help with homework, and you're funny. Plus, you make Mom smile a lot." Julian looked toward the kitchen, where Sophia was standing in the doorway with a dish towel in her hands and pink cheeks. "I'd like to be," Julian said, looking at Sophia rather than Miguel. "If your mom would be interested in that." "I would," Sophia said softly. "Very interested." Miguel cheered. "Does this mean we can move to your fancy house?" "Miguel," Sophia said again, but she was laughing. "Actually," Julian said, "I've been thinking about selling the penthouse. It's never felt like home. I'd rather find something that does. Maybe with a yard for a certain someone to practice soccer in?" Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "Julian, you don't have to." "I want to," Julian said firmly. "For the first time in years, I want something beyond success and profits. I want a life, a real life with people I care about. You and Miguel have shown me what that looks like." "We're not your charity project," Sophia said, her voice catching. "You're not charity. You're the people who saved me when I was drowning and didn't even know it." That night at the restaurant, I was completely alone on my birthday, feeling like I'd succeeded at everything that didn't matter and failed at everything that did. "You invited me to your table. You shared your celebration. You showed me kindness when you had no reason to, and you've kept showing me kindness every day since. You've given me more than I could ever give you." "That's not true," Sophia said. "Julian, you've been amazing with Miguel. You've shown up for him in ways his own father never did, and you've given me someone to share things with, someone who understands the loneliness of working too hard for too long. You've given us both so much. Can we all live together?" Miguel asked hopefully. "Because I really want to live somewhere with a yard and a dog." "Can we get a dog?" "One thing at a time," Sophia laughed, wiping her eyes. But they did move in together 6 months later, not to Julian's penthouse, but to a house in a neighborhood with good schools and tree-lined streets, and a yard where Miguel could play. Julian kept working but restructured his role at the company, promoting younger team members to handle day-to-day operations while he focused on long-term strategy and innovation, the parts of the business he'd originally loved. He made time for dinner with his family every night. He coached Miguel's soccer team. He volunteered with Sophia at the community center where she ran support groups. He rediscovered what it meant to have a life outside of work, to measure success by different metrics than profit margins. On his 43rd birthday, Julian woke up in the house he now shared with Sophia and Miguel, and yes, they'd gotten a dog, a golden retriever named Buddy. Sophia was making pancakes. Miguel was wrapping a present he'd made at school, a picture frame, decorated with buttons and glitter that said, "World's Best Julian." "It's supposed to say World's Best Dad," Miguel explained. "But Mom said I should check with you first before I called you that." Julian felt his throat tighten. "I'd be honored if you called me that." Miguel beamed. "Okay, then it says World's Best Dad even though the words say Julian. You just have to imagine it." That evening, Sophia threw a birthday party, a small gathering of people. Julian had been getting to know through her. Parents from Miguel's school, colleagues from the community center, neighbors from their street. Real people with real lives who knew him as